Kia ora, Anor. I'm Kate. I'm joined by PozzA and Kelly, and this is Under the Checkered Flag, where we talk about MotoGP, Moto2, and Moto3. Before we chat about this weekend's racing, we've had some rider market news that I just want to touch on. The one I'm most excited about, though, is the fact that Luca Marini is all but confirmed to be staying at Honda for 2026. It's been reported by motorsport.com that he is confirmed, so I'm pretty happy to say that he is confirmed. What do you two think about Marini staying at Honda?
Thank God. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit stressed because everyone was like, oh, I want Joan Zarco to join the factory team, or oh, I want Jorge Martin to join the factory team. I'm like, I want Luca Marini to stay at the factory team. So, yeah, honestly, exciting for me. I love Luca Marini, I really do. I admit I was stressed when he originally moved from VR46, but in hindsight, it was the best move he could have made. He's really good at developing a bike. You could see the progress he's made on said bike, and if they replaced him at if they replaced Luca Marini with Joan Zarco, I probably would have cried. So yeah, honestly, not much to say other than I'm really happy.
Yeah, I'm happy as well. I think he'll be a good. He's been a good asset for Honda, obviously, with the technical insight that he brings and gives to the engineers. I was actually reading up on it the other day. I saw an article from sometime last year saying that he actually tried to learn Japanese so he could communicate with the engineers better. And I feel like that's kind of what you want from a rider, especially if you're in Honda's position where they're trying to rebuild. And I think his performances this year have warranted him keeping his ride. So, yeah, I'm also quite happy that he's staying at Honda for next year.
You've both raised excellent points there. Number one, that he's really good at development, because he is. And number two, I didn't know that that he considered learning Japanese, because that sort of thing would be so important to a team such as Honda. And I guess that does sort of flow into the other aspect of the rider market, is the fact that the other rider that was considered, other than Joan Zarco, for that factory Honda seat was Jorge Martin. Now, I highly doubt Jorge Martin would have tried to learn Japanese, but he doesn't need to, because he's staying at Aprilia for 2026. He confirmed this in an interview on MotoGP.com, and I believe it's free to view, but don't quote me on that because I have Videopass and can just click and it plays sometimes. But I guess this outcome was definitely a little bit in doubt, and I am happy because I do want this project to succeed. I think there's so much potential with Jorge Martin and Aprilia. I do think it's got a little bit murky, and his manager has put Martin in an awful position as well, painting him in a bad light. But I'm also a huge Jorge Martin fan, so I could be a bit biased. What do you two think about Jorge Martin staying at Aprilia?
While you're happy about it, I am not. I do like Jorge Martin as a person, but when it comes to just his contracts, he is not exactly a reliable man. I've said this before. He's burned bridges with like about half of the constructors. He almost burned bridges with Aprilia, and it's definitely murky. He basically burned bridges with Ducati. He hasn't burned bridges with KTM, but it's not really on site for a return, nor are they looking for a rider. So the only constructor that he actually really had left was Honda, and you could have screwed that up as well. I understand that he does have a manager that makes most of these decisions, but Jorge Martin is a grown man. If he's unable to make those decisions himself, then that is entirely his problem, and I still wouldn't like him. Um, for him staying with Aprilia, great, good for Aprilia. If I were them, I'd probably have a bit more self-respect and be like, "No, we don't want you now. You almost brought us to court." But what would I know about contracts? Um, yeah, honestly, line up with Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin as much as it can be important. It's very good for development. I just would not like Jorge Martin to be my development rider, but that's just my opinion. So good for him. You have a seat. Maybe don't take your team to court.
Yeah, I'm also happy that he's made the decision to stay at Aprilia in the end. Uh, I think, as we saw in Brno, even in his first weekend back since Qatar, he was still looking a lot more comfortable on the bike, obviously, and I think he finished. I'm not going to say where he finished in the race. We'll get to that later, but he finished up there in the race, and I think it was just very good signs. Hopefully, he can sort of be in podium contention soon. I don't think he'll be. I think it'll be a while until he'll be winning races with the way that a certain Marc Marquez is going. But yeah, I think they can definitely build from where they are. And as Marco Bezzecchi's shown, the bike's definitely good enough to be on the podium. And especially in the hands of Jorge Martin, I think they could. I think it could be a good end of the season for Aprilia.
So, looking at the weekend's racing, we were back in Brno, and overall, we got some decent racing this weekend. Starting with Moto 3, it was pretty good, as Moto 3 always is, even when Jose Antonio Rueda absolutely dominated this race. And I have to admit, him crossing the line and he's sort of doing that shrugging his shoulders gesture, the photos of that have to be some of the coldest I've seen. And I absolutely love it. He won the race by, I think, just under 3.5 seconds. Maximo Quiles came second, and David Munoz came third. Now, he received a back of the grid penalty for slow riding on the racing line in practice, I think it was. Admittedly, he looked behind him and tried to get out of the way, but he also just looked behind him and sort of froze up, so he just stayed on the racing line. So I do agree with this penalty. Overall, it was a pretty fun race, and the battle for the podium was pretty good. Angel Piqueras and Dennis Foggia were up there battling for it as well, and I just really enjoyed it. What did the two of you think of the race?
Well, as a Munoz fan, the start of the weekend was kind of like, well, that's not what I wanted. But honestly, amazing comeback. A bit annoyed that he got snagged on the line by Quiles. That was quite irritating. But honestly, a P3 from the back of the grid is honestly the best thing I can go for. So, yeah, really, really happy with that. David, please get a grip. That would be really kind of you. Rueda was an expected winner. He's always an expected winner. I literally have never expected anything less. Foggia, it was interesting to see him that far up, but I really don't think we're going to see him that far up consistently. I just don't think he's good. Sorry, fight me. That's my opinion. Who else do I want to talk about? Scott Ogden got a point, guys. Just so you're all aware, Scott Ogden got a point. Is this good considering he was on pole last weekend? No, but I will take a point. No major crashes. Eddie O'Shea finished a Grand Prix, albeit an 18th, but he finished one. And yeah, it was a pretty good race. It was entertaining to watch, and I was really happy to see David Munoz make his way back up the grid.
Yeah, as Kate said, Moto 3 is always generally pretty good, and this wasn't really an exception, despite the fact that Rueda won by 3.4 seconds. That was more just down to, it was mainly the Aspar teammates, Max Quiles and Dennis Foggia, scrapping a bit, holding the pack up, but it made for some good racing, so can't really complain too much about it. Yeah, obviously Max Quiles on the podium as well, top rookie. Valentin Peroni, another rookie, was in 8th. Guido Pini was on pole, managed to finish in 10th. And Alvaro Carpe struggled a bit, but still managed to bring it home for P12. And the other thing I wanted to really bring up is just a bit of a championship recap, because with the win, it moves Rueda 85 points clear of Angel Piqueras in second, with Alvaro Carpe still in third, 95 points back from Rueda. And Max Quiles, I think he jumped up a few places into fourth, and he's only 7 points behind Carpe. So it's still quite close in the Rookie of the Year battle.
Yeah, and one question I suppose we're going to have to start asking, and this is not me asking the two of you, I'm not going to spring it on you last minute, is that Rookie of the Year battle. It's something we'll probably look at in a couple of weeks and ask the question as to if Quiles is going to be the one to take this championship. What I am going to ask you both about is Moto 2, because we had Barry Bautis on pole for, I believe, the first time, and it was not a chaotic race, but it was another good race. Unfortunately for Aaron Canet, one of the championship contenders, I just forgot the word contender then for some reason. Unfortunately for him, he crashed out. The rider I do want to talk about is Diogo Moreira. I do think that he did ride this weekend just to clear his penalty from last weekend, because he did his penalty and then retired pretty much straight away. And I did look into the wording for penalties, and it did say that if a rider misses a Grand Prix, then he doesn't have to serve the penalty unless he misses a Grand Prix because of the incident that caused his penalty. So because Diogo was probably still in pain, if he'd missed this Grand Prix, it would have been because of the incident with David Alonso, so he would have had to serve his penalty at the next Grand Prix. So I'm fairly certain he just rode this weekend to clear his penalty, and I'm sort of not okay with that from a rider health and safety point of view. But anyway, back to the racing. It was a good podium. Manu Gonzalez was in P3. Barry Bottas converted his pole into P2. And Joe Roberts won the Grand Prix. Now, this sort of track suits Joe Roberts. I don't know why he didn't even cross my mind prior to this weekend, but it shows that when he turns up, he definitely turns up, and he won this race. What did you guys think of the Moto2 race?
Yeah, honestly, thinking of Moto2, I immediately think of Diogo Moreira and last weekend. He was clearly injured. He was clearly not comfortable on that bike whatsoever, and to retire mid-race says a lot about his condition. So he probably definitely raced to clear that penalty. But, what do we know? We're just podcast people. But race overall, quite fun. Not for predictions, because Aaron Canet, what was that? You're not really helping your case or my case out here, mate. It's not really working. So a bit disappointed in that area, but the podium was quite fun. I don't think I've ever actually witnessed a Joe Roberts win live, so that's a new one for me. American anthem, very weird to listen to on the podium, but I enjoyed it. Barry Baltus, I really thought could be on for a win. Unfortunate that he wasn't, but a podium is a podium still, and it's good progress from my man Barry. So it's good. Manu Gonzalez third, good for the championship. Not a lot to say. Colvire didn't finish in the points because he had an awful start, and that makes me quite depressed. So I won't say a lot more on it, but please, Colin, move it. Like, please, 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 please move it. Ivan Ortola, I think, could be quite a how would you word it? A good rider next year. Maybe not a title contender, but I definitely think he'll be up there, which will be good. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, obviously it was a good sight to see a new winner this year in the form of Joe Roberts. Obviously, he quite likes this track. I believe I saw some stats saying he made his debut at this track and scored his first points on his debut. He took his first podium here in 2020, and obviously now he's won a race here. So safe to say that he's quite a fan of Brno. And yeah, another good race for Barry Baltus. Unfortunately, finishing second again, which is becoming a bit of a habit for him this year. But I'm sure he'll. I hope he can get it over the line in first sooner or later. And a big day for Manu Gonzalez in the championship with Aaron Canet out on the first lap, finishing third. His championship leads 25 points now, so he'll be sitting a bit more comfortably at the top of that. And as always, covering the rookies, Danny Holgado, top rookie in P4. He was P4 for pretty much the entire race and didn't really look like losing it. So, good result for him. David Alonso was also in the top 10 in P9, with Ivan Ortola in 12th and Adrian Huertas in P14, with Colin Vide just missing out on points.
I think I agree with Kelly in the fact that Ortola, I think he could be something next year. Like, we know he's fast. There's definitely potential there. And also, if you haven't checked out bad MotoGP memes, I think he's on account 3 because Dorna keep taking him down, or Meta do. Definitely check out their Instagram channel because they do have a solid meme on the Bautis Canet Onchu, Zarco, P2, Saga, I guess we're going to call it. But let's look at MotoGP. Because for probably the first time in quite a while, the sprint, I guess, exceeded the Grand Prix. Because we had quite an exciting sprint. Now, the podium was also unexpected. The winner, not unexpected at all. It was Marc Marquez. Everything was stacked in his favour this weekend. He's on a factory Ducati. He's doing brilliantly. And he's raced at this track before, like, a bit. Some of the riders in the Grand Prix class, I want to say just Firmin Aldeguer and Pedro Acosta. I think they're the only two that haven't raced at Brno before. Overall, the sprint was good. We saw a lot of battling. What was even better was the podium, as I mentioned, because we saw 2 KTMs on the podium. One of them was Enea Bastianini for Red Bull KTM Tech 3. The other was Pedro Acosta for Red Bull KTM Factory Racing. And as I said, Marc Marquez took the top spot. Overall, it's so good to have a good result for Enea, especially given silly season is upon us and Red Bull Tech 3 have no confirmed riders for next year. I think it's pretty safe to say that they're going to want to keep Maverick Vinales, whereas Enea is a bit hit and miss because he rides the KTM like he rides a Ducati. One of the things he did say this week was that he thinks he did well because he had no reference point to a Ducati. So he's never ridden a Ducati around Brno. He's only ridden the KTM, and that's why he thinks he's done well. So that's definitely quite an interesting point. And it's one thing to hear him say it, but it's also another thing to actually see the results. Other than that, Marco Bezzecchi in P4 is always good to see. Quadraro, I don't know how he pulls these qualifying performances out. He was up there. Those are just my general thoughts. What about you guys?
Sprint for the first time ever was actually quite entertaining, which was very confusing to me, but quite fun. Marc Marquez winner. Wow, wow, wow! What a shock, guys! What a shock. Pedro Acosta and Enea Bastianini was a shock, but not an unwelcome shock. I love Enea. I love Pedro. Really fun to see, and I hopefully they can do a little bit more. And I'm glad that Enea is finally making a bit of a comeback. Marco Bezzecchi, I really wanted to get a podium, and I'm annoyed. But fourth place is a fourth place. It's still solid points. F bag. Probably one of the biggest issues that people had over the weekend was the fact that Ducati's electronics were so messed up that it made the tire pressures appear to be awful, and it showed that Pecco's tires were actually screwed up even though they weren't. So Pecco fell back, obviously, and he's obviously not very happy. Ducati fans obviously aren't very happy, and Pecco fans, as I've seen online, are very, very not happy. So not good by Ducati, and I think Pecco could have had a little bit more on the plate for himself if the Ducati electronic situation did not happen. So it is unfortunate, but that's just the way of the world. Augusto Fernandez took out Taka Nakagami, which has left Taka Nakagami unable to race because he is injured. So that's unfortunate because I do quite like Taka and I was happy to see him back. So as much as it was interesting and entertaining, it was also a bit irritating and sad.
It was kind of unfortunate that most of the excitement in the sprint came because of Ducati's tire pressure sensors not really doing their job. But alas, these things tend to happen. There's not much anyone can really do about it apart from Ducati. But in the end, it caused 2 KTMs to get onto the podium, so I'm not complaining whatsoever. Yeah, that's honestly all I really have to say about it.
I took very little notes this weekend for this recording. One of the things I did put was tyre pressures in the sprint, and I forgot to talk about it. So thank you both for talking about it. Let's look at the Grand Prix, though, and I'm going to ask us not to talk about Joan Mir because I do want to cover him in a topic after the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix was alright. It was boring. Let's be real. It was probably the most boring race we've had this year. You've got a tip your hat, I suppose, to Jorge Martin because he finished in 7th place. I got to admit, given the fact he spent 6 of the last 7 months injured, it's a pretty solid performance from him, and I am happy that he's done well there. The podium was Pedro Acosta, Marco Bezzecchi, and Marc Marquez. Really solid. It was a bit of a snooze fest, and if not for, I think it was a graphics glitch near the end of the race that showed Mark dropping down the order, it would have just been a complete snooze fest. I feel like the graphics team were just like, this is so boring, let's spice it up, because all the commentators, the Spanish commentators, the World Comms commentators, and TNT all noticed it and freaked out a little bit, which obviously, if you're watching, makes you freak out a little bit. It was nothing. At least there was that little bit of excitement though. But the Grand Prix race, what did you guys think?
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. It was just boring. There was really nothing to it. There was no sustenance. It was like it was swapped out with a sprint this weekend, and the sprint was the entertaining one. Um, there was one interesting situation that Kate said we're going to talk about after the race. So I'm gonna not mention it and just say the rest of the race was boring because it was. It was really irritating. Apart from Anea Bastianini, who I thought could have actually got another podium and didn't. So thanks, Anea. Ruined my mood. Marco Bezzecchi could have gotten a win, and then Marc Marquez was just like, no, Mark, in the nicest way possible, shag off a bit, mate, please. Like you have the championship in your hand. You're not going to lose it. You're not going to lose it at all. Can you let Pedro get a win? Can you let Marco get a win? Like, come on, they're behind you. It's close enough. It's close enough. Please. F Bag finished 4th, which I suppose after the electronics issue the day before is better than I could have asked for. Fabio Quartararo mid-weekend really 4th, and no, it was 5th and 6th. I think he came this weekend, which is fine. And, it's valid results. It's just a bit irritating because I know he could have done better than that. And Paul Espargaro got points. Yay!
Yeah, as both of you said, the race wasn't the most entertaining that we've ever had, but it was good seeing Marco Bezzecchi get another podium and Pedro Acosta backing up his sprint podium with a full race podium. Obviously, as a bit of a KTM fan, I'm always happy to see, honestly, any of them up there at this point. It's been that kind of year. Uh, Someone that I was going to mention in the sprint, but I feel like mentioning it in the main race would be a bit better, was Raul Fernandez. He actually had a pretty solid weekend. I think he was 6th in the sprint. He got 5th in the main race. So it was good to see more than just Marco Bezzecchi up there for Aprilia. And as I mentioned earlier, it was a good weekend for Jorge Martin. He took 7th. So good result on his second return of the year. And apart from Enea Bastianini, all of the other KTMs are in the points with Binder in 8th and Paul Espargaro in 9th. So that was also positive to see. Hopefully that means they've sort of found something and can continue being competitive. And aside from that, Fermin Aldeguer was the only rookie. Oh, no, he wasn't the only rookie that scored points. Agura exists. Aldeguer finished 11th with Agura in 14th. So both of the rookies that were racing scored points.
Casually forgetting I agree there. Now, I appreciate you both for not talking about Joan Mir, because due to an internal communication error, which basically means we all thought you were recording at a different time for our listeners, I had time to look at Joan Mir's statistics for this year. So I'm just going to read them out. For the Thai Grand Prix, he crashed out by himself, as in it was his own error. The USA Sprint, he crashed out by himself. The USA Grand Prix, he crashed. There was possible contact with Enea Bastianini. The Qatar GP, he retired after Fabio Di Giannantonio crashed into him, which made him lose aero and made the bike unrideable. Spanish Grand Prix, he crashed out by himself. The French Grand Prix, he was taken out by Enea Bastianini. Aragon Sprint, he was taken out by Jack Miller. The Dutch Sprint, he was crashed by himself, although there was close contact with a Pramac Yamaha. The Dutch GP, he was taken out by Fermin Aldeguer. The German GP, he was taken out by Ayagura. And the Czech GP, he was taken out by Alex Marquez. So, my question to you two is, why is Joan Mir so unlucky? And what do you think this means for him as a rider? We know he has a contract for next year, and I do believe Honda will honour that contract because they don't seem like the type to drop riders mid-contract currently. But your thoughts on Joan Mir and his incredible bad luck?
He's obviously some racing god, but honestly, due to the fact that multiple of the incidents are actually of his own accord, I would be wondering about his contract situation. I know it sounds a bit evil, but at the end of the day, if you have multiple DNFs, he has a 51% DNF rate, if I'm wrong. So, it's not really great. Even though some of those, well, most of those are due to other people, a lot of them are due to his own error as well, and that would be something that Honda would be looking at. Even though he has a lot of bad luck in comparison to other riders, a lot of that is by his own doing. And even sometimes I wonder if he's really cut out for it anymore, because it's okay to admit that you're just not cut out for it anymore. And as much as I love Joan Mir, and as much as I hate the fact that these riders do like to attract to him like a magnet, I do believe that, a lot of it is by his own error. And I hate to say it, but I feel like I need to be the one to say it. So a mix of bad luck and a mix of own error, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one more little thing to Kate's initial point. The Honda admin on Twitter also shared the fact that his flight got cancelled after the race. So everything's kind of seeming to go wrong for Mir at the minute. And it is unfortunate to see. Uh, yeah, obviously, there's not much he can do if other riders are crashing into him. Yeah, unfortunate for him. Hopefully, that can stop happening soon because he's always been taken out of points contention as well. And yeah, that's all I have to say really.
So I just looked up what amount of crashes Joan Mir's percentage is his own fault, and it's 36.36% of his own crashes are his own fault. Now that's quite funny because that's his MotoGP number. But anyway, that's where we're going to stop this podcast. Oh, yes, sorry. Kelly did point out that is this year. And yeah, he's crashed 11 times in sprint races and races this year, and we are at what? We've had 12 rounds. So it's not looking good. It's not looking good, I'll have to admit. Thank you for listening. Next week, we are going to be back, and we are going to be back with our all-time favourite liveries. So we've been trying to figure out what summer break is going to look like, and we're going to be, just having a bit more fun than usual on the podcast. Probably going to argue with each other a little bit more as well. So we'll be back next week with our all-time favourite liveries, or our top fives. Until then, ka kite.